My name's James, I'm a sales executive at Boston Limited. I'm joined by Karen Reilly from NVIDIA, and we're here to talk to you about delivering GPU-accelerated workstations in the cloud. For those of you who don't know who Boston is, we're a company that was founded in 1992. We are Supermicro's longest-standing partner. We actually brought them over to EMEA about 20 years ago or so. We're extremely technology-focused, looking to bring first-to-market solutions into our reseller partner and our reseller channel. We're global, so we have offices in multiple locations across the UK, India, and the US. We've even expanded into the likes of Australia as well. We focus very much on workstation, server, and storage solutions, and we basically leverage our partners such as Supermicro and of course NVIDIA to develop first-class solutions. So what's our partnership with NVIDIA? We are a TPP for NVIDIA. We offer things like the NVIDIA GPU test drive on K80 at the moment, which allows NVIDIA's customers and customer base to log in remotely and use our labs to test product. We partnered with them at ISC, and we actually partnered with Edinburgh University as well at their cluster competition to produce the fastest Limpac score from any UK university or any UK company, and it's still it's a record that hasn't been broken yet, which is something we're very proud of. So today we're here to talk about NVIDIA Grid, and there's no one better to do that than, of course, NVIDIA themselves. So I'd like to bring Karen up to the stage to talk a bit further about that.
Thank you, James. So good afternoon, everybody. How's it going? Are we all having a good time? Have you managed to see everybody you wanted to see? Hope so. It's good to see some smiles. I know it's the end of a long day, so thanks for coming along. Really appreciate that. Now I've just got to work out how to go to my next slide. So, as it says, I'm Karen. I've been at NVIDIA now for nearly a year and a half. Previous to that, I spent 10 years at Citrix. So I come from the virtualization background. Also worked with VMware for a good couple of years now. So my background is definitely virtualization rather than visualization. But it's been fantastic moving into a role in a company that offers something that is really, really unique and actually is now making something that was previously impossible possible. So I'm sure many of you are aware that virtualization has always been able to deliver applications, but we've struggled to be able to deliver graphical apps. And that's where NVIDIA came in about 8 years ago, started working with virtualization partners to be able to enable graphical apps to be delivered in a virtual environment. And we're pleased to say that a year and a half ago, we brought to market a product called Grid that enables that to happen. So let's give you a little bit of information about what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to tell you who NVIDIA is, and in fact I'm going to ask you first. It'd be interesting to hear about what your perception is of who NVIDIA are before I tell you. Talk a bit about the business drivers for VDI, which actually, if we do have a microphone here, don't we? So we could ask you first rather than me telling you, because you probably know. And then talk about virtual graphics and the difference that virtual graphics makes. Then we'll talk a little bit about the market opportunity in terms of who's taking advantage of this solution, of this business enabling solution, and what are the models for delivering it. And then we'll just finish off with a couple of examples of customers that have actually taken the technology and found some benefit out of it. So, who's NVIDIA? Let's go back one. Do any of you here know of NVIDIA? How many of you? Okay, so pretty much everybody. And what do you know us for? For graphics cards? Yeah, in what perspective? Any idea? In all laptops. What, for gaming or for gaming? Does anybody here know us much for outside of gaming? Okay, so quite a few of you do. And are you using Quadro, our pro visualization technology, or high performance compute? So for Quadro, okay. And high performance compute? No, okay. So I'll give you a little bit of an idea about who we are. So we turned over this year or this last year, 4.7 billion. So quite a big company, and I have to say I was quite surprised when I joined because I'm not a gamer, so I didn't know who NVIDIA was. So it's a big sleeping giant that I'd never heard of. Half of that probably does come from the gaming environment, and the other half comes from professional solutions. So we have solutions that enable workstations to deliver graphical applications, and the product behind that is called Quadro. We enable high performance computing. So the top 15 green supercomputers worldwide run on our high performance compute units and deliver and crunch data and deliver data. So massive databases of information are enabled through utilising our high performance compute capability. We enable a lot of cloud services, and we have, well, what I'm here to talk about today is enterprise virtualization, so enabling virtualization and delivery of amazing graphics in the cloud. And then lastly, we work a lot with autonomous machines. So we have this deep learning capability, and what we're doing is we're partnering with companies to be able to enable cars to drive themselves and things like that. So you're never far away really from a GPU from NVIDIA. You'll find them in all Audis. They run the infotainment system in Audis, in the Audi A8, or the digital display is all run by NVIDIA graphics. So it's quite surprising really. So let's talk a little bit about virtual graphics. What are the pressures that are driving companies to want to take advantage of VDI? Anybody got any starters for 10? Ah, oh, brilliant, go for it.
Mobilization, centralization, data security, all these things.
Anybody else? Mobilization, centralization, security, the ability to be able to collaborate, the fact that we have this huge amount of data, we don't want it necessarily on disparate devices, we want to be able to centralize it. The fact that we want to be able to, we've got more and more increasingly complex applications. We want to be able to centralize those rather than having them on devices that, again, are disparate. That we have geographical workforces. So actually, something I'm going to come on to, but let's say in a manufacturing environment or in, architectural environment, you've got designers who are wedded to workstations currently, and they want to be able to work from anywhere, first of all, but secondly, they want to be able to collaborate. So they might be working on a design here in the UK, and at the end of the day, rather than it being on that workstation, if it's central, somebody in another department, in another country, can pick that design up and keep that design going. If you hold those designs centrally, you're able to share them. So collaboration is a really big business driver and a good benefit that this technology can bring. And security. The amount of times that we hear about things in the paper where people have lost their devices or they've lost their USB keys, or you suddenly find that there's a new car design in China, but it's not really a new car design. We've heard of those examples, and we've seen those examples again and again. So it's really good to have now a solution that enables companies to be able to take that IP and hold it centrally. Business continuity. These are all things that actually we're used to in VDI, but we just haven't been able to leverage in lots of markets like manufacturing and oil and gas, which we now can. So what are the top applications that you find that we're delivering in a grid-enabled environment? Here are a number of them. So Autodesk, many people are delivering Autodesk now in a virtual environment. Usually smaller companies, many thousands of them, and yeah, we're enabling that, and that is now certified to run in an environment that takes our grid GPUs. So you can see we've got Katia, Dassault, we've got Adobe, Siemens, Microsoft Office. Now that's an interesting one because with this technology, a lot of people sort of assume that it is only for designers, and it's not. Actually, we just 2 or 3 days ago took a look at our data from last quarter, and the 4th most prolific app was delivering Microsoft Office. because the Windows Aero capability looks for a GPU. And I'll show you a little video shortly, a side-by-side video to show you the difference with and without. So there's a lot of different apps here, but these are some of the most common ones. And these all run on two APIs, two graphics APIs, either DirectX or OpenGL. And what we've got here is some examples of different applications that are used in different industries that are written on that API. And what our technology does is it takes the calls from that API and allows that to flow out through a VDI infrastructure. So here's Windows Aero, and as you can see on the left, if you're going to run it without a GPU in the environment, you know, one of our NVIDIA Grid's cards, you'll get this type of experience on the left. On the right, you'll get a scrolling experience, as you would on a workstation if you were utilising that technology. So that, for many customers, is an enabling technology because it means that, you know, people their employees aren't having to wait for things to be delivered. They're getting an equivalent experience on their work device as they would when they were a student at university using their own devices. So that kind of experience we expect as consumers on our own devices, they're being able to bring to the workforce for visual graphics. So here we've got a manufacturing app, Siemens NX, and you can see that without the GPU, you're not getting that reality. You're not getting it's sort of a night and day performance. You don't see the reflections, you don't see the shadows. With a GPU in your environment, you do. So again, it's very similar to having a workstation-based performance. And this is the last video, which doesn't seem to want to run at the moment. Let's have a look, whether it's going to run by itself or not. Okay, so let's give it a go. Maybe if I go like that, it'll actually run. Yes, it is, okay. So, again, similar to the last two that you saw, here you can see the engine parts. You can see that this is a CPU, so no GPU in the environment. It's emulating the graphics. This is what you would normally see if you're running an environment without a GPU in it. It takes a long time to load the frame buffer and a long time to load. What will happen in a minute is you'll get the side-by-side ones come up and you'll see the time lapse between the two. Performance is very jerky. So when it's empowered by NVIDIA Grid, you get this flowing, you see the thing flow as you would on your own workstation at home, or from a designer perspective as you would if you had that, workstation underneath your desk. You can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can move parts around. Very, very different experience. And anybody that has been used to using a workstation would be used to this, but they wouldn't be used to seeing this in a graphical environment. So it's quite a nice example of what's possible. And actually we have lots and lots of side-by-side videos without GPU and with GPU. So if it's something you're considering, you can go to, we'll leave some resources at the end on this slide deck so you can download them, but there's a site called GPU Genius. If you go there, lots and lots of side-by-side videos so that you can show with or without a GPU in a VDI environment. So who benefits from this? Well, I've touched on some of the types of people and audiences and markets that benefit from this. What you've got on the right-hand side there is numbers from Gartner, from a piece of research they did in 2012 that shows you there's they reckon around 25 million designer users worldwide. And you can see the numbers coming up to 400 million knowledge workers out there, and then coming down to 100 million task workers. Quite a big market. And so we've sort of split it out in terms of designers, power users, knowledge workers and task workers, because the people that tend to buy this first or in companies are those that are design-led. They've got an application that they want to be able to collaborate with other countries, or they want to be able to source a workforce from another country, and they can't do that if all of the technology is in one office. So we're seeing designers take this technology first, or companies that have designers taking this technology first, and then thinking about how they can enable the rest of their users. A lot of companies create those designs, and then they have engineers in the field that want to be able to view them. So that could be we would look at those users either as power users or potentially as knowledge workers. It might be an engineer in the field that needs to look at a drawing. Well, if you can enable him to do that on his tablet, that would be a fabulous thing to do. So companies tend to buy for designers and enable those people that are out in the fields. And then what they can do with the rest of the GPU, if there's GPU left, is they can enable the task workers. Or you may be in a company that simply wants to deliver a better graphical experience to all of your workers. So we've got two options of different cards that you can use that I'll talk about in a minute. On the left-hand side, that gives you some examples of the types of apps that we would consider to be used by designers or power users or knowledge workers. Just to give you a little bit of an idea. So what sort of vertical industries go on top of this? So at the bottom there, it's non-industry specific. Any task workers can utilise and take benefit of accelerating graphics. Pretty much the same in terms of accelerating Office. So as I've referred to Windows 8. If you want to run Google Earth and get a good experience again, that would be you could have a small amount of GPU to enable you to do that. And then from a power user and a designer's perspective, the industries that we're finding that are taking full advantage of this and that we have customers and win stories around are these types of industries. So very vertically specific industries that are taking advantage of this really now. What are the models then for delivering this GPU? Well, the GPU comes in two cards. The virtualization one comes in two cards, a K1 and a K2. And in the they're both about this big, they're about this thick currently, and they sit in a server chassis. So you buy the server chassis, like the Supermicro chassis that Boston offer, and you can fit those grid cards into that chassis. And the K1 has 4 GPUs on it, and the K2 has 2 GPUs. The K1 that has 4 GPUs has 4 lower end GPUs and is really good for task workers and knowledge workers, and sometimes lower level power users if you've got an engineer in the field and they simply want to view drawings, for example. You can deliver that K1, each of those GPUs on there, you can either pass through or you can split it up into a number of users, but I'll talk to you about that in a minute. K2 has 2 GPUs, and those GPUs are 8 times more powerful than the ones on the K1. No surprises, therefore, that they're for the designer-led user and for the higher-end power user. So you have 2 options, really. With the K2, you get lower density, but you get increased performance for really heavy graphical users. With the K1, you get higher density, but you get a smaller amount of GPU delivered, which could be relevant for engineers or for task workers and knowledge workers like myself. So I said there are a couple of different models to deliver GPU. First one is virtual or vGPU. And today, actually, well, we've been able to deliver vGPU with Citrix now for around 16 months. But today, we've now announced with the release of vSphere 6, we can also deliver vGPU with VMware vSphere. So we can enable pretty much any VDI environment now, so long as they have vSphere 6 and the latest versions of the software to be able to deliver the GPU. So in a virtual GPU environment, what you can do is you can take each of those GPUs I was talking about on the cards and split them out up to a number of 8 users currently. So each of those cards, so for the K2 with 2 GPUs, you could get up to 16 users, depending on the application that you wanted to deliver. So if you were delivering a high-end oil and gas petrel type application, you wouldn't want to deliver that up to 8 users per GPU, it would be less than that. But there are many, many applications out there that you could deliver up to 8 on each GPU. And on the K1, you've got 8 users per GPU, so it's 32 users per card. And most servers will take 2 cards, so that's 64 users on a K1. What about Supermicro? They do a whole number, don't they? They do one that's got 4, I think, slots in the chassis.
Yes, so you can do up to 4 on a
Yeah.
one-U chassis. Yes,
Okay.
I'll show you the
Yeah.
images in a
We're
second.
going to talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. So that's one model for delivery. The other model for delivery is pass-through. So you've got lots of options here. In a pass-through situation, this is somebody that really needs the whole horsepower of the GPU. So you would be delivering 2 on a K2 and 4 on a K1, and then times that by the number of cards that you can fit into the server chassis. There are about 60 chassis that are certified to take grid. So those chassis have to be certified because the card needs airflow to go a certain way, it needs a certain amount of cooling, it needs a certain amount of power wattage into the server, and it needs a certain amount of space. So servers obviously need to be certified to take grid. So in terms of credibility, we've been delivering our Quadro driver for many years, 20 years I believe it is now, maybe even more. And we're using that Quadro driver technology in the Grid driver. That Quadro driver is certified for over 100 ISV software solutions. Not all ISVs are running to certify in a virtual environment. As you can imagine, there's some impacts on the ISV in terms of thinking about how they license and their licensing models. So some customers choose to want to have their apps certified. Other customers say, well, we're happy, certified or not, we will deliver. But that comes down to personal choice and obviously your relationship with the software supplier that you work with. Interesting fact, 83% of workstations out there run an NVIDIA GPU. So if you are looking, if you're talking to users are very well aware, very well versed in the NVIDIA technology. Whereas if you come from the virtualization world, you don't necessarily know, you wouldn't necessarily talk to those users, but the good thing to know is that who you're selling to already knows who NVIDIA is and knows about our credibility in this space. So this just gives you an idea again about the different applications in the different industries that we see. Some of them are DirectX apps and some of them are OpenGL apps, but as you know, both of those work on our technology. So to give you a few case studies, I'll give you an idea of who's using this. The first one is a company called STV. They are an architect, engineering and construction company. They're delivering this technology over 2 continents. They've obviously got over 1,500 employees there that they're delivering virtualized graphical apps to, and those applications include Autodesk, as you can see, and Bentley MicroStation. So what sort of impact has the technology had on them? Well, their workstation users can work remotely and still get a workstation type environment. They wouldn't know the difference. And in fact, we have talked to users who have said, actually, we prefer this model now because you can send your drawings off to render. They don't necessarily know the technology behind it, but send your drawings off to render it. They can go off to one virtual machine over here rendering, but I can continue working here on my designs. So there are a lot of benefits really that we need to educate users about because they're so used to having their workstation, and that's quite a big thing. That's quite a big challenge to be able to provide something that can give the same performance, but hopefully enable people to be able to work remotely or work collaboratively. So if you want to take a look at this for yourself, we do actually have a test drive capability. So you can go and try Grid. It's only 2 hours that it gives you, 2-hour usage time, but it gives you the chance to go into the cloud, have a look at a number of different applications that we've put up there, from HTML5 through to AutoCAD to Google Earth, and then down here we've got some really heavy sort of digital stuff. So this guy's name is Reilly. Basically, he's a completely computer-aided design, manufactured person. On a wire frame. You can see him, you can change his background, you can change his eye colour, you can do all sorts of things on the fly in the cloud just to see that technology working. It's a really nice thing to use just to show what is possible. But of course, what happens after this, once you've seen it, is what you want to be able to do is put a trial in your own environment. So if this is something you're interested in, you would then speak to your partner, or you could get in, I'll leave you my contact details, you'll have James's contact details, you can speak to James, you can speak to me if you're interested, and we can talk to you about making sure you get hold of this, and then how you would move forward into a trial scenario to try this in your own environment. So that's about it, really. I've kept it hopefully quite top level, give you an introduction really of how this can be used. Yeah, sure. Do you want to?
What kind of virtualization technology does it support, the grid?
So Zen app, Zen desktop, vSphere, Zen server, both sets of technology.
KVM?
Sorry?
KVM?
So I don't believe so.
No.
I don't believe so. Not yet. No.
Any other questions before I just finish off? No? Cool. Right, cool. So obviously Boston is the systems integrator for the NVIDIA Grid platform. So we have multiple hardware platforms that we can use. They kind of sit in three nice product families, although there are lots of different configurations that you can use. There's a very simple 1U solution, which we actually have on our stand at the moment, and I'll go into a little bit more detail about that one in a minute. We have a 2U solution as well, currently set up to take roughly 4 K2s, but technically that chassis can take 6 GPU cards. When the Haswell release and the Haswell certification comes along, we're hoping that maybe the BIOS restrictions will be lifted a little bit more so that we can really get some good density in for the GPUs into these systems. And finally, we have the Fat Twin as well, which is a 4U solution with 4 nodes. Each one is redundant on its own, and you can fit up to 3 K2s or 2 K1s in there. Again, it's BIOS restrictions, not physical restrictions, that are the difference there. So on our stand at the moment, if you guys, so I know I've seen some of you around, so some of you have already seen this, but we're actually deploying this live at the moment at the show. We're only literally just down there, so you can go and have a look. We are running VMware number 6, which has literally just been released today, so we've had it for a couple of months to be able to play with it and get it all working. And you can see a live demonstration of everything in action at the moment over there. Of course, you can also deploy it on Citrix as well. So yeah, again, if you guys want to come and swing by the stand, I know it's getting late in the day, but we're still open and still running, so we're literally just down there, as I said. If you don't get the chance to come see us, we do have a test cluster solution. We allow customers to remotely log in for any application they need. So it can be Grid, can be any other product that you need. We obviously offer quite a large range. Please just feel free to contact me and we can offer some testing. And here are our contact details if you need anything. So I'll open the floor to some questions and see if anyone else has anything else they want to ask.
Any more questions from anyone? Or if not, feel free to come up and have a chat with us afterwards, or come down to the stand. I'd be more than happy to talk to you about your use case or what you're trying to do with the technology. Thank you very much.
Just so you're aware as you leave, there are just some flyers in regards to this particular platform available for you to read at your leisure. Okay? Thanks.